How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 2.
Hello, America. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the nation. The phone number 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, I would be very happy to have you. Don't forget as well, you can text Eric to 33777. You can get the live stream, the show notes, the podcast, everything else that you want to get. So I want to circle back now and actually spend a little bit of time diving in a little more on the radicalization issues that are out there, because we now know about the shooter in or not the shooter, the arsonist in Mississippi. The arsonist in Mississippi is a 19-year-old community college baseball player who went to a great Catholic school in Mississippi. His name is Stephen Spencer Pittman. Stephen Spencer Pittman told his dad what he was going to do. His dad became very concerned, tried to stop his son. He was on the phone with him, tried to persuade him not to do it. And Stephen Spencer Pittman burned down the synagogue in Jackson, Mississippi. He's going to spend a long time in prison now. Stephen Spencer Pittman referred to the synagogue as a synagogue of Satan. I don't know that it's a coincidence that Candace Owens and Nick Fuentes have more than once used the phrase synagogue of Satan to refer to Jews or Jewish synagogues. It appears that this young man got radicalized online starting during COVID shutdowns. There's a familiar pattern here of young men getting radicalized during the COVID lockdowns. And I really need to emphasize to you that based on the available information we have at the time, his parents did everything right. They raised him right. They had him in a Catholic school. He was involved in sports. He had a promising baseball career. They had him in church. And he got radicalized online and through podcasts. That's got to be terrifying to all of you who are parents. It terrifies me. I know some of you listening, you're not parents. I have now a 20-year-old and a 17-year-old. My wife and I, by the way, wish we had more kids. We couldn't, and we wish we did. And all of my friends who have 2 kids, I tell them, if you can't have 3. It's kind of sad. So our son is a junior in high school. He wants to go to Samford. He wants to be an architect. And he is my wife. I mean, I love my son, but he is my wife's. I know it. My daughter is mine. And we both we wish one more kid. Everybody says when your kids are real little, that's when they're awesome to play with and they're so fun. And I've always been a workaholic, and I love my kids and I've always loved the time. But them being teenagers now, the amount of jokes we can share, the movies we can watch together, the stuff we can do together and enjoy each other's company. I enjoy my kids' company. I enjoy them so much. And the idea, my daughter is doing study abroad. Next week she heads off to the UK for a semester. And then my son goes off to college after next year. My wife and I are going to have to be husband and wife again. We've been parents for so long. How do we find stuff in common again? We're going to have to figure stuff out. Trying to get her into golf. She wants to get me into motorcycles. My insurance won't let me get into motorcycles. She doesn't want anything into golf, and I don't know that I want to put a golf club in her hand. I've already gotten one upside my head by my son one time. Nonetheless, I digress on this. I worry about my kids, and now my son and my daughter both have very funny senses of humor. So my daughter, the other night, I was explaining the Iran thing, and it was my daughter who said, and everybody, I put it online and just said my kid, and people were like, oh, your son's so funny. He is, but it was my daughter who said we should refer to the Iranian Revolution as the Shawshank Redemption. The Shaw? Yeah. It went viral online. But this kid had a loving, church-going family, had him in a church school, and he got radicalized online and on podcasts. What are your kids listening to? And what is your relationship to your kids? My kids ask me about politics all the time, and we engage in conversations. We don't always agree on stuff. My son, when he started making a few too many out of bounds jokes about Jews, I gotta say, he's got a funny sense of humor. I was like, you know what, we really should watch Schindler's List, so the Holocaust is not an abstraction to you anymore. And we watched it. He thinks that every kid in his school and high school should have to watch it to understand that this is real history. In a day and age where everything is relative, everything is morally relative. This is real history. This really happened to people. You really saw the hate. You saw the banality of the evil. Ordinary, random German guard just shooting people because they were Jews. It left an impression on my kid, and it's a positive impression. But I think about these kids who are listening to the Nick Fuentes of the world, who he makes jokes about throwing Jews in ovens. He calls himself a Nazi. You've got these growing voices out there. There's a podcaster who claims to be a pastor, although my understanding is he had some impropriety towards a woman in his congregation. And you got that, what is it called? Something blue. It's some supposed cancer cure. People have sent it to my wife. And the sponsor's like, hey, we should destigmatize Hitler. We need to understand what really happened. We don't need to understand what really happened. We fought that war. We know what really happened. But all this revisionism of the people just asking questions and the young men who are listening to these podcasts, they're getting radicalized by the people who are just asking questions. Here's the thing, though. We spent a lot of time on young men just asking questions and getting radicalized, and many of them voting for Donald Trump because of that radicalization. You know what we haven't spent enough time on? The radicalization of white progressive women like Renee Good. I have the file. I'm not going to play you the file because of the background noise and profanity in it. But a video has come out. It is a confirmed, legitimate video. It's not AI. It's real. It's been circulating now in the media. There is no way for me to say this without people hating me for saying it, but I'm going to say it anyway. Renee Good was apparently in a relationship with one or more men, got pregnant, and is now a lesbian, or became a lesbian, had her lesbian partner, and was using her time to harass ICE. She got into the cause du jour. There's clearly, listen, if you go from guys to girls and you're a girl, there's clearly an issue of some kind you're dealing with. And we absolutely know, there are massive amounts of data to show it, that progressive white women in this country are the most mentally unstable. And I don't think it's a coincidence that when you watch these protests about ICE, overwhelmingly it is white progressive women, many of them with the same bad haircuts, who are the ones protesting ICE. They need a cause to feel engaged with. Many of them are childless. Renee Good was not. She had a child. And this gets me back to the video that is now confirmed to be real. Do you know what her lesbian partner who was with her protesting yelled after Renee Good was shot? The woman is in distress, and she yells, "Why were you using real bullets? Why were you using real bullets?" What did this woman think ICE would do? They were cosplaying heroes. It was a game to them. A game that made them feel virtuous. We've talked a lot about the radicalization of young men who feel alienated in society. What about the radicalization of middle-aged white women who are bored and need a cause? And the cause for progressive white women increasingly is fighting what they perceive as tyranny. I want Philip Signia, somebody, to cut this little clip right here and put this on social media. Do you know why ICE is in Portland, Oregon, and Minneapolis, Minnesota, and Chicago, Illinois, and New York City? Do you know why we're hearing about ICE going into those areas to round up illegal aliens? And by the way, they're rounding up illegal aliens, and in Minneapolis, they have arrested more than 24 illegal aliens who were either in jail or out of jail having committed child rape, child pornography, rape of women, DUIs, murders, manslaughter. Do you know why ICE is there? But they're not in Atlanta, Georgia. They're not in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. They're not in Nashville, Tennessee. They're not in Houston, Texas. They're not in Miami, Florida. They actually are there. But you don't hear about them there because in those states, the states and cities cooperate with ICE. Renee Good would still be alive if Minnesota and Minneapolis cooperated with ICE. They chose not to cooperate with ICE. Then they chose to vilify ICE and convince neurotic white progressive women that ICE are the second coming of the Nazis. And these middle-aged white progressive women with nothing better to do, who wanted to feel virtuous, decided that they would engage and they would become the heroes of their story, and they would block ICE. Renee Good was not an innocent bystander who was just dropping her son off. Renee Good was not just driving down the street. She was actively, for that day, stalking ICE and trying to disrupt their operations, including, for a very long time, using her car to block ICE from going down the street, honking her horn loudly, dancing to the tune of the horn. She instigated what happened, and she did so because the state she lives in and the city she lives in, unlike the cities and states in the South, they refuse to cooperate with ICE. In Georgia, we are a few days removed from the anniversary of the murder of Laken Riley by an illegal alien, where the local government in Athens, Georgia, operated as a sanctuary city, and they denied that they operated as a sanctuary city, but multiple members of law enforcement came forward and said despite their protestations to the contrary, they were operating as a sanctuary city. You know what the voters did? The voters threw a lot of those people out, and the policies were changed both at the state level and the city level. And guess what? You're not hearing about mass protests in very liberal Athens, Georgia, because they're all cooperating with Athens, Georgia, and cooperating with ICE. ICE was in Minneapolis and in Minnesota because that city and state refused to hand over rapists, child pornographers, child rapists, repeat DUI offenders, murderers, men found guilty of manslaughter, Laotians, Burmese, Somalians, Venezuelans. They refused to hand them over, despite many of them having been in prison, let out of prison, currently in prison. They wouldn't hand them over. All they had to do was hand over these people. Nobody disputes they're illegal aliens or criminals, and they still refused. And ICE went in, and Renee Good lost her life because she got radicalized, trying to find a cause she thought was greater than herself. She obstructed operations, and yes, in fact, she did. Even the mayor now admits did hit the ICE agent with her vehicle. Regardless of how bad of an impact you think it was, she did. She would be alive had that city and state simply cooperated with deporting illegal aliens. And yet they chose to put the lives of the illegal aliens ahead of the lives of their own citizens, some of whom had been murdered by those illegal aliens. That's why we're at the point we're at, and you on the left may hate to hear it, but it is the truth. Hello there, welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program. The Nordic nations have rejected Donald Trump's claims of Chinese and Russian ships in Greenland in a presence in the Arctic. They say it's not actually happening. He continues to want to double down on getting Greenland. All right, I got to tell you about Vision Computers. I mentioned the other night that I haven't had to do tech support for my son since we got his computer from Vision Computers. He knows how to call them. In fact, let me give you an idea of just how good their tech support is. You can call them at 404-COMPUTE or go to visioncomputers.com. 11:40 at night, he had a problem with his computer. Couldn't figure something out. He emailed Vision, figured it's late at night. I'm just going to email him. He emailed him. His phone rang at like 11:45 at night. And he didn't answer. He's like, I don't recognize the number. It must be a telemarketer. It's like, telemarketers do not call 11:45 at night. Call back whoever called you. It was Vision. 5 minutes after emailing, literally 5 minutes after he emailed, they were calling him back at 11:45 at night. Had him upstairs at his computer within a couple of minutes and had the problem fixed. He had yet again done something to loosen a cable. That's the sort of customer service you get with Vision Computers. Call them at 404-COMPUTE or go to visioncomputers.com. They can build you computers. They can upgrade your computers. You can get their managed IT service like we have with our computer. It comes free with the computer. 404-COMPUTE. You build the computer with them. You get the managed IT service. Otherwise, just $199 a year per computer. 404-COMPUTE or visioncomputers.com. You need them in your life if you've got technology. Hello and welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, I am going to go down a rabbit hole, and I am very mindful of the fact I'm going down a rabbit hole. Some of you will prefer that I not go down, including probably some program directors, but I'm going to go there. Because this is a conversation that existed online and is starting to spill over offline. And I have now encountered people in the real world raising these issues, not just people who are hyper online. We got to deal with a little bit of theology, and it happens to be relevant to something I'm doing right now. I want to begin, though, by playing a viral video that went on Twitter. I'm not going to give the guy's name. It's not my intention per se to vilify him. My suspicion is that he's got a monetized account. And I also don't want to help him make some money. But this guy is in the Washington, D.C. area, apparently, and you need to hear this.
Okay, well, I did a bad thing in church today. I refused to receive the Eucharist from an Indian woman. I was supposed to go to her. She was in my aisle, but across the church was the white priest. So I walked across all the pews and received it from him for fear that I might get fecal matter on my Eucharist receiving it from an Indian woman. Plus, I'm not going to receive it from anyone who's non-white. Sorry. Considering what's happening in the U.S. and in the world with our replacement, I'm not doing that. I guess I'll go confess this to my priest, but I'll continue doing it. That's the compromise.
That's the compromise. First of all, I'm not Catholic, but even I know that if you are acknowledging you're going to keep doing something and you go confess it, you're still sinning, and it's not a forgivable thing. You're not changing your heart. Now, this comes on the heels of Dale Partridge, who claims to be a pastor in Arizona, who is a white nationalist, and he is claiming that interracial marriage is not ideal, even though he says he's in a mixed racial marriage. It's not ideal. Can you think of that? And that mixed race children are not ideal. Think about this for a minute. So this guy is in a marriage that is interracial. His wife is Mexican. He's a white dude, and he's saying it's not ideal. What's so very funny about it is that he claimed his wife was okay with that. And you literally get to watch him on social media. This is his account. Women are designed to be led. If a woman refuses male leadership, she will either end up alone or with a beta male. Beta males always leave women feeling insecure, which makes her prone to leaving him for an alpha male and leaves him prone to leaving her for a submissive woman. Someone replies and says, I try very hard to lead my wife sacrificially, but I suspect that somehow I would still be labeled as a beta male, so that's fun. And he replies, my husband serves by leading. He sacrifices by leading. He loves by leading. So it's his account, but clearly pretending to be his wife. Now, this has gone viral with these Valentine's accounts, or Valentine's made-up cards with his picture. Be the mother of my suboptimal offspring. There are lots of Dale Part. So this guy, and Joel Webbin, who has this massive following online now, claims to be a Christian, very much into white nationalism, and he was in Austin, Texas, and demanded some woman lose weight, and there have been allegations about improper conduct of him, and he has this podcast, and all these white nationalist guys are trying to claim that mixed race marriages are bad, and that the default for this country is whiteness, and for the church, it should be in this country led by white people. And by the way, there is a growing, that World Magazine had an article the other day about more and more pastors are finding young men in their churches are raising questions about race and whiteness. In churches, young men are raising questions about race and whiteness and interracial friendships and marriage and the subordination of non-white people in this country. And essentially, young men are becoming racist because a lot of commentary they're watching and listening to online. I am teaching my Sunday school class Genesis 1. Now, you would think you could do it in one 30-minute Sunday school lesson, maybe two. We're 5 weeks, maybe 6, on just Genesis 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The entire chapter. It's actually a fascinating opening chapter of the Bible. You know, people don't realize it in Genesis 1, the light is created before the sun and the moon. And the very end of the Bible in Revelation, the very final chapters, says that in the new heaven and the new earth, there will be no sun or moon. We won't need it. We'll have the light of God. The same light reflected in Genesis 1. You know, in the second day, or the first day, God says, let there be light. And on the resurrection, Jesus bursts forth in light from the tomb. The second day of creation, God begins to separate the light and the darkness and the waters from above and below. He begins to provide separation. On the second coming, Jesus divides people between the saved and the damned. There's a lot of reflection in the final days of the very first days. I haven't gotten to this point yet. If you're in my Sunday school class and you're listening right now, we're going to jump ahead by about 3 weeks. So for those of you, and I realize this is a little bit of a theological rabbit hole, but you just listen to me here. This is what actual Christians believe, not these white nationalists online, many of whom I don't actually believe are Christians. God obviously will be the one to settle that, but you know them by their love, and they don't have a lot of love. But for young men who are listening right now, God makes everything in the beginning, and there's a word that is used, bara. God makes the light, bara. God makes the planet, bara. God makes the animals, bara. God makes the plants, bara. God makes male and female. He makes us in his image. It's bara. In Isaiah, when God is essentially calling out Cyrus and saying, you may not know me, but I know you, and you're going to be the one who sends my people back, he says, I create the light and I create the darkness, and he uses bara. We never use bara. Bara is a divine creation. It is a whole form creation. When God speaks the world into being, it is all there. When he makes man and woman, he doesn't put them in a womb for 9 months and gestate them and bring them into the world. He just makes them right there, raised from the dust of the earth. It's bara. It's a special divine creation of the whole. God can build. He can hammer. Jesus was a carpenter. He can build things as you and I build, but he can build things in ways you and I can't. And one of the things you get out of the very first opening chapter of Scripture is that God makes us male and female. We don't get to make male and female. So if you're a believer, you cannot believe in transgenderism. If you're an actual Christian, I know there are people who call themselves Christians, but if you're an actual Christian, you can't believe in transgenderism definitionally because the word choice is bara. That means only God can do it. And Genesis 1 says God makes us in his image. He made them male and female. He bara'd them male and female. You can't believe in transgenderism if you're a Christian because what you're saying is you believe that we as people can make individual humans male and female, and you can't do that according to Scripture. But there's something else. You know what else is not made in Eden? Race. There's no racism in Eden because we're all God's people. There's no black, there's no brown, there's no white. We don't know what Adam and Eve's race is. We would assume, given where we think the whole place was, probably dark-skinned. Jesus was a dark-skinned Jew after all. But there's no race. So when you have more and more people out there thinking that we can bring race into these conversations, you can't because it wasn't there that first week of creation. There was no race. Now, why bring all this up? Because one, there is an alarming trend that more and more people, including, like, for example, the Speaker of the House has said he has encountered this now. I have encountered this. And when I think about this young man who decided to burn the synagogue down, calling it a synagogue of Satan, there's clearly a trend of young men getting radicalized on this stuff. I mean, this guy has destroyed. He clearly had a loving family. They did everything right. He gets radicalized online by voices online, and he burns a synagogue down, claiming it's a synagogue of Satan. There are a lot of young men who are getting their brains washed by poison on the internet, and you see this rise of people online trying to inject white nationalism into the conversation of the right. The president of the United States, God bless Donald Trump, he gave an interview to the New York Times, and they asked him about anti-Semitism, and he said there is no place for anti-Semitism. There is no place in his movement. There is no place in the Republican Party for anti-Semitism. Most of the people, almost all of the people who are bringing up the interracial marriage and racism are also anti-Semites. Marjorie Taylor Greene and her America First agenda, it's entirely anti-Semitic. And the president says there's no place for anti-Semites. There's no place for people like Marjorie Taylor Greene in this movement. There's no place for these supposed pastors who claim that mixed race marriages are inferior. And by the way, a lot of this also has to do with trying to undermine J.D. Vance for the future. A lot of these guys, the Nick Fuentes's, the Candace Owens's, this Dale Partridge, the Joel Webbin, they're all out to get J.D. Vance. Why? Because he's a Catholic who's married to an Indian woman. And they're trying to sow the seeds of racism right now to undermine J.D. Vance in 2028. By the way, they also don't like Marco Rubio because he's Hispanic. I guess they're going to side with Gavin Newsom or somebody. I mean, these racists are backing themselves into a corner on stuff. But I bring all this up now, and I dive down into this because it is a growing issue. I see it's one of the usual suspects who emails when I talk about this stuff. Surely there's something more important in the news. No, this is actually really important. A 19-year-old in Mississippi burned a synagogue down because his brain got poisoned online by people telling him Jews and the synagogue are a synagogue of Satan. It is happening in our communities around the country. It is coming up in more churches as young men listen to the voices online who are racist. All these things. I'm here to tell you, it is not so. And if you are listening to a pastor or a voice online who claims to be a Christian who embraces transgenderism, they're probably not. And if you listen to a voice online claims to be a Christian who embraces racism, they're probably not. And you can get that all from just the very first chapter in the book of the Bible. But also, you should be able to get it from your common sense. There are voices seeking to divide us all. They're radicalizing progressive white women. They're radicalizing young men, a lot of it in the white community. If you're non-white these days, y'all just sit back and think, this is a white people issue. And a lot of it is wild how so much of this stuff is it's the white people podcasts. It really, there is something going on in white America right now. I don't quite understand what it is. But people are having some mental health excursions on the left and the right now among white people, finding their place in the world. Do not listen to the voices that would divide you on race or Jewishness or anything like that. And I am very thankful. As much as I can criticize the president, I'm really thankful for the president. He has come out very, very forcefully against anti-Semitism, which clears some confusion as to where he stands on these issues. But I would just note that there are people in the movement who are still embracing the Candace Owenses and the Tucker Carlsons of the world, who, by the way, had his brother on the other day who compared the United States to Iran or North Korea, which is itself nonsense. There are a lot of America haters out there. They tend to be on the left. This growing number of people who claim to be on the right who are America haters. We are the last best hope for mankind, the best nation that ever was. And if you don't like America, why don't you go to North Korea and live there instead? Stand by if you're listening. Stand by. There will be an update on the Iran situation just after the top of the hour. I'm getting my hands on some details, so stick around for the third hour of the program. I'll bring you up to speed. Right now, I want to squeeze in Chris's phone call. Welcome to the show, Chris. How are you?
I'm fine. Eric, I would like to ask you to use your influence with conservative talk show and newscasters to stop saying, why are the Democrats funding and why are the Democrats protesting so loudly, even illegal aliens who are criminals being removed from society? Why ask that question when they know the answer? They should always state the answer, which is the Democrats had one strategy and one strategy only for permanent power. That strategy was taken away from them when Trump closed the border. They still hope by delaying every single one being deported of any type that they can recover that advantage of ultimate power, that the president will lose strength, will lose resolve in keeping the border closed and in deporting those who have come illegally. If they can repeatedly, as broadcasters and bloggers and whoever else, stop saying we wonder why and say the reason is the Democrats have one strategy and they insist on implementing that strategy because they have no other.
Well, and you know, Chris, we got to be real, or let's be frank with people, too. The strategy is that the Democrats are slipping as non-white Americans shift to the GOP. The middle class and working class shift to the GOP. They've got progressive whites, and they need this new incoming class of illegal aliens that they can give amnesty to so that they can refill the stock of voters for Democrats. Not only that, they can preserve the population growth in places like Minnesota, Illinois, New York, California, Oregon, all of which have seen net negative migration. They need illegal immigrants to prop up the population of those states. They need illegal immigrants to game the census, to game the Electoral College and the representation in Congress. They need illegal aliens to be there to on the dole to get federal taxpayer dollars into those states. They need the voters. That's why Mark Warner the other day admitted the border had been too open by Joe Biden, but instead of saying he supported deportation, he said, no, I think we need amnesty because they need those voters and they know it. Now, you might need a good bank. And if you do, I would recommend Old Glory Bank, oldglorybank.com/Eric. They were started by conservatives, for conservatives who are really concerned about the debanking trends in the country, where progressive activists were buying up shares in banks and then forcing them not to do business with gun dealers, gun manufacturers, conservative causes. Even Melania Trump got debanked. So they started it to protect conservatives. But as President Trump has come back, you don't have to worry so much about that now. But they're one of the fastest growing banks in the country because they're so business friendly and they're so supportive of veterans, first responders, active duty military. In fact, if you're active duty military right now, you can get some of their premium accounts, so they waive fees. You go to oldglorybank.com/Eric today and find out more. You can do custodial accounts for your kids, mortgages, CDs, fully functioning bank. You can even deposit cash with their great app, even though they're an online bank. oldglorybank.com/Eric. I got a checking and a savings account with them. You can too. Member FDIC, equal housing lender, terms and conditions apply. oldglorybank.com/Eric.